Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone. For those of you who are wondering, is she dead? Has she pulled a hammy? No, she's in full training, loud and vocal as always. And I'm here to give you your latest Tottenham transfer news, views and clues, and all things Tottenham update. I've got to throw in a few opinions here because there's a couple of stories. I'm going to talk about Tyler Dibling and Richard Rios and Adam Wharton. Stories out about those three particular players. Before I get into it, I just want to say it's Sunday, so we've got a massive game today. And look, I think for me, I just want to quickly talk about the outcome if it goes horrendous, right? And I think that obviously we're all hoping for the best, we fear the worst, etc. But the reality is that it's going to be an uphill battle today. Hopefully, Tottenham can put in a better shift. Hopefully, we'll see some of these young players be drafted in, more of them, because I want to see players with fight who've got something to play for. And I've said all along that Ange Postecoglou, for me, I would go Ange out if, A, the cup stories are over. I think there's a justification then. And also, or if there's demonstrations of the players downing tools, like losing faith, like losing the dressing room. And that losing the dressing room thing is subjective. Obviously, we're not privy to the insights of what's happening in the players of the minds, any of the squabbles, or what might be happening behind the scenes, etc. A lot of people speculating that people like James Maddison are falling out with the manager. Obviously, we don't know about any of those things being true. Some people are saying that some of the injuries are not as bad as as people making out. There's suspicions all over the place. Conspiracy theories, they are afoot. What I would say is, obviously, you have to speculate a little bit with regards to the losing the dressing room vibe, but I think that it can manifest in many different ways. And I think that you can see the obvious signs where you have squabbles on the pitch, fighting on the pitch or in the dressing room that becomes stories that come into the press. People throwing their shirt on the ground when they're substituted. Or it can just be, things like what happened on Thursday night, whereby you're seeing a team in a semi-final second leg that weren't just timid and afraid and gutless and pathetic, but also, to me, they looked confused. They looked like they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. And I think that is a consequence, not necessarily a demonstration of a losing of the dressing room, but certainly a consequence of a manager that I said all along didn't need to build a hill as small as it's who we are, mate, and then die on it unnecessarily. Brand Ange seemingly a little bit more important than Tottenham Hotspur's ability to offer a portfolio of tactical options that can get you through different circumstances and at least find the time to train for them. And I believe that if you spend 18 months of your tenure basically playing and prepping for one vision. Okay, there's been tactical pivots. And I'll actually show an interesting stat up on the screen in a minute, if I can, in the post-edit, that will show you the amount of teams, or the teams in sequential order, of who have made the most tactical pivots in games in the 2024-25 season. And Tottenham, I think, are sixth on that list. Nottingham Forest at the top, Manchester United right at the bottom, with only one tactical pivot. That was a terrible throw. But I think there's context in there as well. So I'm not suggesting that Ange Postecoglou is a one-trick pony, or one-trick pony rather, but I think that those tactical pivots are all based around the same philosophical movement that we have seen adjustments towards and pivots away from recently, which again was always going to be an inevitable necessity. You can't get away with one style of football. When it was found out, then Ange Postecoglou moves towards other options. But if you haven't had the time on the training ground, as he has said, this notion that the training ground injuries is just wrong because we're barely training at the moment, then how are you going to be able to have the time to implement a strategy that is so alien to what you've been talking about for 18 months, the message of front foot football? And to me, I think that is manifested in reality on Thursday night when you're looking to play low block, you're looking to tuck in and defend a one-goal lead. And I don't think the players, by and large, knew how to do it. The defenders did. The midfielders didn't. The attackers didn't. Because most of them have only, or experienced for the most part, for the largest time, one style of football. And then if you're not having the time on the training ground because of the frequency of games and recovery time and time in the medical room, etc., then you haven't got enough time on the training ground to be able to implement a plan B. And that is why having that plan A philosophy for 18 months, which was never going to be able to be sustainable, then manifests in shit shows like what we saw on Thursday. Now, if we do it again tonight or today, this evening, then I think that will be a double demonstration of a dressing room that is lost, not because they necessarily have lost belief, but it's because they've lost the ability to understand what it is that the manager is asking of them now that is so 180 on what they have been used to. And that, to me, is another nail in the coffin. I hope that we perform better. I don't mind losing. It's a tough place to play, but you've got to stand up and be counted. And we're going to pivot now, guys. Sorry, it's 5.5 minutes in. That was a long-winded way of saying what I want to see, essentially, for the rest of the season, is doubling down on the one area of where Tottenham is something, the area of Tottenham's football that is exciting, the area of Tottenham's football that is promising, and that has the potential to be something similar to what we built in 2016 and 2017 under Pochettino. And that is our youth talent. It's quite incredible. I've got a list here of the players that are sort of 21, 22 and younger. And I'm an advocate right now for essentially in the summer to get rid of the vast majority of our senior players. With the absence of Ben Davies from the list, I don't mind if he has to go because, you know, it's just at some point you have to sort of sunset that kind of relationship. But I think he is a leader and I think he is dependable and I think he never lets you down. His ceiling is lower than others, but he's always right up there. He's like a 5'9" man living in a hobbit home. You're hitting the ceiling. The ceiling's pretty low, or it's not necessarily low, but it's not as high as others. And whereas you've got, like, in other areas of our squad, midgets that are living in a church with a 50-foot ceiling, but they're nowhere near it. To me, listen to this list. And by the way, I just had a thought. Is the word midget allowed anymore? I'm not sure. If it isn't, then I apologise. But little person. How about that? How about this, right? Look at this. Listen to this list. Mason Melia, Pape Sarr, Udogie, Will Lancashire. Absolutely sensational performance against for West Brom yesterday, apparently. Micky Moore, we know what we got there. Jamie Donnelly, what an absolutely sensational performance for him yesterday for Leyton Orient. What a goal, not a goal, whatever. But even Pep Guardiola said after the game that what a left-footed player he is and one for the future. Matisse Tell, will he stay, won't he stay? I'm not sure. Ange said he will stay, but we don't know. We don't know what that looks like, whether he wants to be here or not. We'll find out. Destiny Udogie, right? Don't forget about him. I know everyone's like he had a terrible season and he's injured and people are thinking about Jed Spence, etc. But still a very, very, very talented player. Go back to his first season and he can improve with the right guidance and the right instruction. Archie Gray, Lucas Berghvall, Jed Spence, I'm including him, Tyrese Hall, Josh Keeley, wonderful performance and doing really good things over in Leyton Orient as well. I'm even going to include Pedro Porro and Cooley because they're not old guys. They may have been around the block and they've been top players, but they're not old. They're still young guys. If they're going to be here, we'll find out. Micky van der Ven, still very young, 23 years old, right? Obviously, we need to think about what we're going to do with him because if you can only put out 40% of the season efforts because of your recurring injuries, then Tottenham will need to go again in the summer and get someone of a monster calibre. But I am an advocate for this youth revolution. I think it's about time that for the rest of this season, assuming we're probably going to struggle against Villa today, and with the absence of the Europa League, because I think we can do things in that one, I think that with the Premier League, if we can make the assumption that we're probably going to be safe, that in all likelihood there's 3 or 4 or 5 teams that are worse than us for sure, and that they're not going to be able to, it's going to be difficult for them to close, to have to win 4 games more than whatever we can put out over the remainder of the season, then, I think that we should be utilising this time to prepare for what's next. And what's next could be the most exciting team of youth-centric talent in Europe. Certainly in the Premier League. We're putting together this, I haven't even finished the list yet. What about Williams Barnett, right? This 16-year-old who scored a hat-trick yesterday in the under-18s. Brilliant hat-trick, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, it was 2 rights and a left. I'm not sure. I think that was right. Gunter, another goalkeeper extraordinaire. Dorrington, Phillips, Keita Marion, or Myron, however you say it. Oluwasi, Udogie. We've got so much talent. I'm sure I'm missing players off that list. So much talent. And then you hear stories about Adam Wharton, 21 years old, was Blackburn, I think it was Blackburn, went to Crystal Palace, stepped up. Now he'll cost you 60 million quid, but it would be awesome to have him in there as well next season with Archie Gray and Berghvall and Pape Sarr competing for 2 or 3 spots. Unbelievable squad rotation of youth-centric, mainly homegrown talent. You know, you're building something that is super exciting. And I know that our first team is really frustrating right now. But if you focus on that too much, you're going to be miserable. So start to think about what's coming. And if you can keep all these guys grounded, keep their feet on the floor, keep them healthy. Of course, those things are all difficult to do. And sometimes, and as Ange has been saying, he's worried about burning out these young players by asking too much of them too soon. But then bring some more of them in. Bring some more of them in. Let's see some of these guys. Like, I think we should treat today as a bit of a free hit. We've got a wonderful, wonderful record at Villa Park. I don't want to just give up and assume that it's game over, therefore just play the kids. But I'm saying, like, the older players are not putting in a shift right now. The established ones look like they don't care, or they're confused, or they're disinterested. And either way, it culminates, that cocktail of potential variables is summarised by output that looked a lot like what we saw against Liverpool. And it wasn't just Liverpool that you can point to this season where you saw that. There was lots of other examples of it as well. The young players are fighting for their ability to be picked again. They've got things to prove, they've got effort, they've got energy, and they've clearly got talent. And as I say, I've been calling for this notion for 3 months before Ange even arrived. I said, whoever's next is the guy before the guy. And I do believe that 1 or 2 more shows like Thursday night, then the guy after the guy before the guy, as in the guy, well, I think he's not far away. And so as much as Ange Postecoglou won't really care deep down about helping out the guy who's next, I think it will behoove him as much as it will us and the guy who is next to actually implement some of these youth and see what they've got now, so that next season, or if it takes this season after, whatever, we will have a team of maturing, Premier League experienced talent across the park that is capable of starting that journey that we did under Poch 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And that's where I want to focus. As I said before, I'm someone who likes to live life through a positive lens, a glass half full lens. And so right now it's difficult to marry that up with what you're seeing from most of the first team. But those that you can are young. And what you're seeing with the people out on loan is very encouraging. And what you're seeing with people in the youth setup is very encouraging. And I don't hate at all. I don't have any problem with links to players like Adam Wharton at 21 who could come in and smash it. And Tyler Dibling. This guy's 18 years old. Now, we were looking at him, who's another link, by the way, all January, and I think we were put off by the asking price of £60 million. I think it was 60. But you know what? I think we are guilty at Tottenham of setting the precedent and the benchmark for what is a valuable 18-year-old with Premier League experience. Bearing in mind, we paid £40 million for Archie Gray, who had no Premier League experience. Tyler is the same age, give or take, and has smashed it in a team that is likely to go down. And I just think that he is a perfect accompaniment for Destiny Udogie, a fully fit Destiny Udogie. And then you keep Pedro Porro and Jed Spence on the right side. And then you have your fullback set up for the next, if you can keep them all happy and fit and healthy, you have that situation covered for 4 or 5 years to come. Right, you really do. I still think you're going to need to have money to go and get a sensational centre-back to help Van der Ven out, because he's a 50% games in the season guy, isn't he, clearly? So you're going to need to go and get a Mark Gahey or someone else, who isn't young, who isn't old either, by the way. Then you move forward and you look towards the youth model that we're just developing with so much excitement around Archie Gray and Berghvall. You throw in an Adam Wharton in there. Or how about that Belieber from Brighton, who's 21 years old, who's like Pape Sarr on steroids, can distribute the ball far better than he can. He's got movement, mobility, an incredible tackle. He's feisty, he's fast, he's technical. All of the same attributes, by the way, that you can attribute to Tyler over at the Tyler Dibling at the left back spot. Fast, acceleration, technically creative, gifted, defensively balanced, can track back on the left or on the right. At 18 years old, doing it at the Premier League, £60 million, you might be going, what? Come on. But we are responsible for setting the benchmark and the precedent of what top young talent costs now because of what we did last season. And Stefan Borson, football finance expert, correctly said, even though I think he's speculating as to the reasons why, but he's correct when he says the stats and the data show an undeniable trend towards Premier League teams no longer paying top money for players above the age of 25. They want to buy players that are younger. He ascribes it to the fact that one contract and the valuation drops and it's just not worth the risk when you're paying 200 grand a week for the best players. So everyone is looking to young. Everyone's looking to youth. And that early adoption that Tottenham have done recently, because of Paratici, I'm not sitting here giving credit to Daniel Levy for this, I'm giving it to Paratici. He was the guy who had Daniel Levy's ear, and convinced him, as Dave and Johnny have been talking about for 2 years on my channel, about the need to restructure and refocus the youth setup. And we're starting to see the fruits of it now. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it is starting to pay dividends. But just like the benefits of having a multi-purpose stadium, when you create something that is fairly new and nascent in at least Europe, I'm not going to be dismissive here of the American reality that stadiums have been used for non-match days for decades in America, but it's a fairly new thing that's happening in the UK, or at least in Europe. And Tottenham were the early mover advantage of that, created a brilliant stadium, the best stadium in the world, cost a fortune, loads of debt, but we're paying it off and making a fortune out of it. But you know what? Just like anything else in any other industry, when someone creates something that has a popular and successful introduction, unless that thing is patented, like a pharmaceutical drug that has 25 years to reap the benefits of all of the spend of the research to develop it, there's very few patents that can exist for the idea of using stadiums to make money, right? There's none. It doesn't exist. And so just like knockoffs emerge in every other walk, in every other industry, the timeline of which Daniel Levy can be the sole beneficiary of all of the concerts and all of the activity and the experience metrics that are becoming far more relevant, palpable and powerful with the generation that's coming up, Gen Z. They don't want to go out and get drunk anymore. They want to go to experiences. They want to go to stadiums. They want to go to concerts. They want to go to the whatever. It's a new world. And Daniel Levy was ahead of the curve, but that stuff doesn't last forever. And neither does the idea of youth-centric buying up the best top talents. And I'm not saying that Daniel Levy or Paratici was first on that draw. Manchester City and, of course, latterly Chelsea were. But Tottenham have entered that party, and you know it won't be long now until the others do as well. And so my round-off point here, let's bring the weave, as we do, back, is that 60 million for a Tyler Dibling might not be that bad, because he might just be the left-back that you can rely upon for a long, long time to come, and have a sell-on value that actually appreciates in value if he does continue on his trajectory, and if the trend towards everybody pivoting youth, everybody paying big money for unproven talent, but yet potential. Then again, if you wait a year and this kid becomes 19, he might be 90 million. Same with that Balaba, however you say his name. You go and get him now in the summer, maybe he's 50 million, 40 million. You go and get him next year, might well be another £100 million player for Brighton. Adam Wharton, well, Palace paid a lot of money for him, but they will treble their money when they sell him within a couple of years. And I think he'd be an absolute top draw Tottenham type player. And in so doing, you do have to question whether or not the only negative side of that is filling your squad with the best 18 and 19 players from around the Premier League that have already emerged. Are you, by proxy, then shutting out the potential of the Tyrese Halls and everybody else that are coming through? I don't think so. And I don't really mind, even if the answer is yes, because of the youth, the loan policy of which we've had relative success this season. I didn't even mention Dane Scarlett on that list. I should have done. then there's a way that you can still benefit from your youth academy of the actual homegrown players that have come through from the age of 14 that didn't cost you a bean by selling those players with add-ons. And of course, the amortization benefits with the current but possibly being removed FFP and PSR rules are there to be acknowledged as well. So to me, guys, I don't know if this has been a 20-minute nonsense rant, but in summary, I'm all for trying the youth. I'm all for more and more of it. I'm all for sunsetting the likes of Bissouma, Bentancur, Sonny, Ben Davies if he has to, Fraser Forster. Anyone that's 27 or over, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with saying goodbye to nearly all of them. Nearly all of them, I really am. Let me know your thoughts. Last other story for you I didn't get to, Richard Rios. I had a dream, believe it or not, last night, that Richard Rios signed for Tottenham. And I don't usually have those sorts of dreams, and if I do, I don't remember them. But I remembered it, and I woke up this morning, and the first article that popped up in my newsfeed was £100 million or $100 million player coming to Tottenham in the summer, and it was Brazilian. And as soon as I saw the picture, it didn't even have the player in there, but it was the Palmeiras Botafogo game. And I knew straight away that it was about Richard Rios, and because of my dream, I think there's something to it. Now, he's not a £100 million player, a $100 million player. He's just got a release fee of that much. But in terms of quality, in terms of strength, in terms of balance, stamina, in terms of his absolute rocket of a shot, go onto YouTube and type in Richard Rios long shots, and you will see this guy has the ability to hit the valve like Cristiano Ronaldo used to do from a standstill shot, from a free kick. This guy can do it when the ball is moving, and gee whiz, is he an absolute... He's like a Ronnie Rocket back in the day. For those of you old enough to remember Ronnie Rocket, do you remember that 5-2 Southampton FA Cup game? 4th round, I think it was, or maybe 5th round, on a Sunday. Funnily enough, when Ronnie Rocket scored a hat-trick and Bruce Grobbelaar was in goal, and all 3 goals were unstoppable from 25 yards, and the next day Bruce Grobbelaar, I believe, was then... arrested for corruption or something, for match fixing. So everyone was like, oh, those 3 goals were saved, should have been saved. Nah, they weren't. If he was guilty of any corruption or match fixing, it wasn't because of that game. That was just Ronnie Rocket in the top bins. And I think Richard Rios is a bit of the same sort of calibre of long shot. I hope he's a far better player than that. And to me, from what I've looked on the Y-Scout, he looks like he really is. And those links are hotting up. I'm all for adding a little bit of experience, but I think the experience that we have has let us down too many times. I want to clear out. I love what we're doing with the youth, and I'm going to choose to focus on the positives, and I want to see more of it, because what is next is coming soon. The guy before the guy is probably, I would say, 1, maybe 2 abject performances away from a scenario where nobody can deny, even those who are on my side, who said, you give him the cups and you wait to see if the dressing room still believes. And if either of those 2 things manifest in bad outcomes, then it's probably time. And I think that if you see an abject performance today, then you see 2 cups disappeared in 4 days and 2 demonstrations of a team that either don't believe or are confused because they haven't had the time on the training ground to learn a plan of action, a strategy and a structure of football that is now alien to what they have been learning for 18 months. And Ange didn't need to do it that way. He chose to be, it's who I am, mate. And it was unnecessary. And if we end up with a confused performance that looks like it's toothless, then I think, it is one of those coin flips of whether you'd rather Ryan Mason or Ange for the rest of the season. I don't really care, because neither of them are going to do very much, but I want to see youth, and I want to see these people, these young kids, get a chance to show us what they can do, because what's next requires a manager who has evidence, a track record, a history, and an enthusiasm for working with young, top-tier talent with huge potential that we can turn into the 2016, 2015 Pochettino years, but go one step further and actually get what we all want, which is success. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, bye-bye.